there, my name is Robin, and welcome to English Grammar Now. Today, our lesson is all about using if. We use if to start clauses that somewhat have a similar meaning to clauses with when, which is what we studied in our last lesson. They talk about what will happen in the future, in some cases. For example, we could make a sentence like, when we hear any news, we'll let you know. We could also say, if we hear any news, we'll let you know. However, the meaning of if is slightly different than when. If we say when, we are quite certain. But if we say if, we are uncertain. We may hear news in the future, or we may not. There are a few different ways that we can use if in a sentence. We're going to study the two most common. First of all, if can be used in sentences talking about things that will probably happen. We are basically describing the result of something. For example, if I have enough time, I will pack my lunch for work. I don't exactly know if I will have time. I might or I might not. But if this is true, then what I will do is in the second clause, I will pack my lunch for work. The second pattern that we use with if is talking about things that are unlikely in the future or not true right now. Here's a couple of examples. If he had the money, he'd prefer to live in the city. This is talking about right now. He doesn't have the money, so he won't be thinking about living in the city. The second example, if I won the lottery, I'd move to a larger apartment. The first part is talking about the future, but we don't think it's likely. We think it probably won't happen. So the second type of if clause is talking about an unlikely future or something that's not true right now. Now we'll look at both types with a little more detail. The first kind, possible if clauses. These ones we think are actually very likely to happen. We're describing what will happen as a result. So here's some examples. If you ask her, she will say yes. So the speaker thinks that she is very likely to say yes. If your father calls, could you bring me the phone? The speaker expects the father to call. And the third example. Jake might meet new friends if he joins the film club. The speaker expects that he will probably make new friends. Now let's take a closer look at the grammar in possible if clauses. It follows a very expected pattern. We have two parts to these kinds of sentences. There's the if clause and the other clause. But as you can see, they could be in reverse order. In the if clause, you can see that the verbs are highlighted in pink, and they are all in the present simple tense. Ask, calls, and joins. In the other clause, we have modal verbs that have a future meaning. Will, could, and might. Because these kinds of if sentences are talking about something in the future. Here's your chance to practice possible if clauses. There's a couple of steps to this exercise. First, you'll have to look at the first clause, the if clause, and put the verbs into the sentence in the present simple tense. Then decide which of the after clauses will match with each of the beginning ones. Go ahead, give it a try. Here's how these sentences can look once we've put them all together. We've got the verb in the if clause highlighted in green, and the second clause highlighted in yellow. Number 1. If he passes the exam, he'll get a certificate. Number 2. If you are hungry, you can get fruit from the fridge. Number 3. If you want the pictures, you can have them. Number 4. If anyone arrives late, you might miss the bus. Number 5. If we hurry, we'll get a good seat. All of these sentences are talking about something that may or may not happen in the future. You can see that the if clause in all of these is coming first, but we can also change the order of these two clauses. For example, for number 5, we could say, we'll get a good seat if we hurry. Now let's take a look at the second type of if sentence. In this kind of sentence, we're talking about an event that is unlikely to happen in the future, or it's already not true right now. Here's a couple of examples. If there were more buses, I wouldn't have to wait as long. So the speaker doesn't think there will be more, and right now there aren't more. So we're talking about something that's not true now. The second example. If I studied alone, I might learn more effectively. In this case, the speaker isn't necessarily planning to study alone. It's something they're already not doing now. One more example. You might beat traffic if you left now. The speaker, the person who is leaving, is not really going to beat the traffic. Here's a look at the grammar in these kinds of if sentences. It's a little different than the kind we just looked at. In these ones, you can see that the if clause has a past simple verb instead of present simple. And in the other clause, we have the verbs would, might, or could. So now let's practice with these a little bit. In each of these sentences, add the verb that best matches it from the box. These are already changed into the past for you, so you don't have to worry about that. See if you can figure out which one fits best. Go ahead, give it a try. Let's take a look at the answers to these sentences. Number 1. If you lived in an apartment, would you want a roommate? This is what we would call a hypothetical question. It's not true right now. It's not even planned for the future. It's just a question about something that's not real right now. And you can see that the if clause is at the beginning in this one. Number 2. If I knew the answer, I'd tell you. Here you can see that it's happening right now. I don't know the answer. Another way we could say this is, I'd tell you if I knew the answer. But unfortunately, I don't. Number 3. If you worked nights, you'd have to sleep during the day. This is something that might be talking about the future, but it's not something anyone is planning. It's not likely. We're just thinking of some ideas that might happen. Number 4. If we met in high school, I think we would have been friends. Here's another example of something that isn't really possible right now. We're assuming that we didn't meet in high school. But if we did, maybe we would have been friends. Number 5. If you had to choose, would you be really tall or really short? Obviously, this is something we can't choose, but it makes for an interesting question. In all of these examples, the if clause is coming at the beginning. But just like the other kind of if sentences, we can reverse the order of these clauses if we want. Here's a short poem that is using some of these if clauses to talk about something that's not true right now and not exactly possible in the future either. But it makes for some interesting ideas. I'll read it and you take a look to see if you can find the grammar of the if clauses that we've looked at. If I had to live my life again, I'd stop more. I would pick more flowers. I wouldn't worry or complain. If I had my life over, I'd take my passion seriously. I'd paint and not worry about the mess. If I had my youth one more time, I would frown less and laugh more. I would enjoy everything mine. Here's some of those grammar parts that we've been looking at. You can see that there are 3 if clauses. If I had, past simple. If I had a second time, and if I had a third time. Now, because this is a poem, we've added more than one of the second clauses. I'd stop more, I would pick more flowers, I wouldn't worry or complain. Which makes for some interesting thinking. Even though this isn't something that is actually possible now, it gives us some nice ideas to talk about. Thanks for studying using if in a couple of different ways with me today. I'll see you again next time. Goodbye!